Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out this morning. My name is John McNesby, and I'm president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 5 in Philadelphia. I'd like to thank everybody that came out today, our members, the co-sponsors of House Bill 1538, and the author of that, State Representative Martina White, who is a good friend of the Philadelphia Police in Philadelphia. We are here today and traveled here today for a very important issue. All you have to do today is look out in the news, look in the newspaper, read, listen to the radio, and see that there seems to be an outward disdain for police officers, not only in Philadelphia, but throughout not only the Commonwealth, but throughout the country. We're here today to ask for common sense, and that's all it is, common sense legislation, which states that an officer's name would not be released within 3 days, 72 hours of an incident regarding a handgun. So if an officer is involved in a shooting, we would ask that the name, for pretty much common sense, officer safety of his family, not to be released until after the investigation or until the appointing authority seems that it's safe enough for the info to be released. We'd also just ask you to take a look around what's happening around the country. In Texas, we had a deputy sheriff who was pumping gas, was assassinated. Chicago officer was gunned down and assassinated. And it's happening throughout not only the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but also around the country. And this is legislation that shows that we're going to be proactive rather than reactive. We're not going to wait for an incident to happen. To have a city administration and a commissioner want to release an officer's name within 72 hours just merely to satisfy the public does not make sense, especially in today's day and age with technology. All you have to do is Google the officer's name and it puts his family in danger. So we're looking for a little bit of peace of mind here with this legislation. I'd like to personally thank everybody that came out, the sponsors, the co-sponsors, and Representative White for doing that. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Representative Martina White, and we're very proud of what she's doing here, and we look forward to supporting her in the future. Martina?
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank all the officers present today for your service to the great citizens of our Commonwealth. Thank you to John McNesby, president of FOP Lodge 5, for being a leader and being a driving force behind this legislation. And thank you to Les Neary, president of the state FOP, for your support in helping to make this bill a reality. Our officers represent the law. To enforce the law is an enormous responsibility, and we must show our men and women in blue the respect they deserve for having the courage to risk their lives to protect us and our communities. Their job is not only difficult, but it requires split-second decisions that can save the lives of others. I know many of us think of our local police officers as being invincible, and rightly so, because they are truly modern-day heroes. What we need to remember, though, is that these men and women are human, just like you and me. They have families who worry about them and wonder whether they will walk through the front door at the end of the day. They are mothers and fathers, sisters, brothers, sons and daughters, neighbors, friends, and they are fellow Americans. And as Americans, we know that all citizens, including our police, are protected by the constitutional right to due process, not to have their fate determined by the media or a mob with a political agenda. They and their families have the right to security. We must not expose our law enforcement officers to the exact situations that they try to prevent us from experiencing, such as harassment and violence. My colleagues and I stand together today, united in our support of House Bill 1538 that serves to help fix a broken system that for too long has left our officers and their families in a vulnerable position. This legislation is powerful not only because it has bipartisan support, but because it helps protect the lives of those who protect us. We currently have 52 legislators who have joined as co-sponsors. Exactly. Supporting this bill means protecting the identity of an officer while he or she is being investigated for discharging of a firearm or using force in the line of duty until criminal charges have been brought against the officer. Once the investigation is complete, criminal charges have been filed, and the life of the officer and his family are no longer in jeopardy, then it is to the discretion of the public official to disclose the officer's information. Delaying the release of officers' names until a full investigation is complete is not about special rights. It's about using common sense and providing a level of security our officers need so they can remain focused on protecting our communities. Building stronger relationships between law enforcement and communities is important, and I believe that this bill will contribute to that effort by providing clarity to the circumstances surrounding an officer's actions instead of a rush to judgment. Rushing to judgment and making assumptions about officers' actions only serves to feed into the mob mentality that is plaguing our nation and creating targets out of our officers. While criminals threaten the well-being of our officers every day, our own public officials shouldn't be the ones handing over officers' information. That can lead criminals straight to them and their families where they can take vengeful actions. It's wrong, and now is the time to do something about it. Today, more than ever, our law enforcement officials need to know that we as a Commonwealth stand with them and support them for the noble work that they do. In showing our support for the sacrifices that they make on our behalf, we are taking a position that serves to protect them and their families the way that they have always done for us. Thank you for being here today. I'd like to introduce Senator Rafferty, who is taking this bill up in the Senate.
Thank you, Representative. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. So nice to be joined with our heroes and friends, the men and women of the law enforcement community, Les Neary, John McNesby especially, and their rank and file members, a number of the legislators here today, and a special shout out to a voice in the U.S. Congress who continually speaks out for the law enforcement community, Congressman Charlie Dent. Good to have you here, Charlie. Our society is based on a number of freedoms, but recognizing the fact that some people will take those freedoms too far, we have a rule of law. And the first line in the rule of law are the police officers. These are men and women who every day, when they put on their uniform, say goodbye to their family. They and their family never know if they're going to return. We're all pretty sure we're going home after session's done. They're not sure they're going to see home or loved ones once again when they put on their uniform. And in a day where we're seeing routine traffic stops or questioning someone on the street turning into physical altercations and death of our law enforcement community, it is vitally important for us as a legislature to ensure the public safety of our law enforcement community. One of the cornerstones of government is to ensure public safety. That includes all members of society. All lives are important, and I support our law enforcement community. Our police officers are doing it day in and day out. If there is an altercation and a gun is fired, someone is injured, someone is killed, they, the police officers, deserve the respect and the due diligence that is accorded to many criminals in this system. When you ask about investigations, we can't comment on that. Well, why would we put the police officer's name out there until an investigation is completed? It is insanity. We need to make sure that we protect the identity of our police officers during any investigation. Once a police officer is criminally charged, certainly the name will be out there. But if there's no charges filed, that police officer and his or her family, in this day and age of Google, can continue to be protected. Many of these people that Many of the people they encounter when this happens are people who want to do harm to another, whether it's a police officer or you and me. That's the type of interaction they're having on a daily basis. So for us to ensure their secrecy until the time that charges are filed, or if a decision is made not to file charges, and there's no reasonable expectation of a violation of the police officer's family, that'll be up to the prosecutor and the authorities in the police department whether or not to release that name. But what we're working on today, and I'm proud to stand here with Representative White, and our bill in the Senate will be very similar to hers, and I'm working on that with Senator John Sabatina from Philadelphia. We're working to protect all law enforcement officials here in this Commonwealth to make sure they deserve and receive the same rights as any other person in the Commonwealth. I'm anxious to get this bill introduced in the Senate and to work with Representative White to get it, one of the two bills, through the legislature and to the governor's desk for his signature, so we continue to ensure public safety for our law enforcement officials. Now, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to all of you my colleague and my partner in the Senate on this particular piece of legislation, Senator John Sabatina. John.
Thank you, Senator Rafferty. Every day in Philadelphia, thousands of police officers fan out across the city to protect the lives and the property of more than 1 million residents, commuters, tourists, and visitors. These officers investigate 70,000 major crimes every year and make nearly 100,000 arrests. As a prosecutor for nearly 5 years under Lynn Abraham in the Philly DA's office, I work closely with the city officers while also having the responsibility of dealing with thousands of criminals. With several high-profile incidents putting a spotlight on police officers and the way they do their jobs, there has been, in my opinion, a sudden urgency by the media and the public to make swift judgments about the officers. It's not only unfair, but it's dangerous. That's why I'm strongly backing legislation that's about to be introduced by State Rep Martina White, almost gave you a promotion there, and working with Senator Rafferty to construct a bill that prevents law enforcement agencies from releasing the names of officers involved in shootings or other uses of force until a thorough investigation has been conducted and it's been established that the officer's action constitutes a crime. We're asking police officers to do a very difficult job. They have to make split-second decisions under adverse circumstances. In Philadelphia, our officers are highly trained and well supervised, and they know that what they signed up for. However, their families did not sign up for this, and they should be off limits. Releasing the names of officers involved in high-profile incidents before all the facts can be gathered puts families and associates at risk, and that's not part of the bargain that the police officers signed up for. It's not an easy balance, and while I expect that Representative White, Senator Rafferty, and I, and some other representatives and senators will get pushback from organizations and agencies that we typically support and respect, denying public access to information, even temporarily, is not a decision that can be made easily or lightly. It's been my experience as a prosecutor, however, that tells me that in cases when police officers use force, initial witnesses and media accounts can be regrettably inaccurate or biased. The emergence of social media and the internet age gives access to information and accelerates the spreads of rumors, creating a danger for officers and their families in the emotional aftermath of high-profile events. Under Representative White's proposed legislation, the names of the officers will be released to the public only if they are charged with a crime. The actions of the officers who use force should be subject to thorough scrutiny by responsible supervisors. But if those actions withstand this scrutiny, they should not be turned over for rejudgment to an emotional mob. I believe that city prosecutors and police administration have to be extremely vigilant in holding officers accountable for their actions and filing charges when warranted. Failing to do so creates a public perception that can be even more dangerous for the vast majority of officers and their hundreds of thousands of interactions with the public every year. It's imperative that we find a balance that protects both the integrity of our criminal justice system and the public's right to know, while at the same time protecting the lives and property of the police officers and their innocent family members whose lives must not be affected to a rush of sudden judgment. Thank you, Martina, and thank you, everybody, for standing with us together today to make this possible.
And now I'd like to introduce Representative Harry Reid Shaw. For all of his support, I am truly grateful on this bill. I know you are very dedicated to bringing a bipartisan support to this bill, so I'm very grateful. Thank you so much, Harry.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Representative Harry Reid Shaw from Allegheny County, the 36th Legislative District. And, you know, this is a very interesting moment because, you know, we hear a lot of legislation, and I have stood here many, many times in support of legislations, but I have to be perfectly honest with you, and I think most of my colleagues would agree with me. There has been no legislation more important to date than standing here with law enforcement and making sure that this legislation is passed. So I will not repeat the Representative White's words, nor the Representative White's words or the Senator's. I hate to give too much credit to the Senate as being a House member myself, but they have seemed to cover all the bases this morning. So with that, I just want to take a moment since so many law enforcement people were here today, to just say this. I want to thank you. I thank you on behalf of my constituents. And if I may go as far as thanking you for those who are standing behind me. We'll be eternally grateful to all those in law enforcement. You have sworn to uphold the laws of the land. You've sworn to protect us, being the citizens, and we shall be eternally grateful, and I thank you, and I am dedicated to seeing this legislation gets passed, and I hope there's a strong effort to get it passed as quickly and as soon as possible so we can protect law enforcement officers. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to introduce the president of the state FOP, Les Neary, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much. On behalf of 40,000 active and retired law enforcement officers across the Commonwealth, we stand behind this piece of legislation. It is very much needed for our members to protect their lives and the lives of their family. Again, not to repeat what you've heard here today, we're in a different world than it was back even just a few years ago. And because of that, we have to make sure that the men and women who are out there putting their lives on the line every day in the protection of others are protected, and their families. So we fully support this piece of legislation and look forward to its swift passage. Thank you very much.
And then Congressman, if you'd like to come up as well, we would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the leadership.
Thank you for being here.
Look, this isn't my show, but I just wanted to at least commend my colleagues in both the House and the Senate for their very strong leadership and support of our men and women in uniform, our law enforcement officials. I'm here for the simple reason that I don't know about you, but I am just sick and tired of all of the criticism of our men and women who are serving us in so many ways. After what we just witnessed in Texas, where a deputy sheriff was killed pumping gas, we saw 2 New York City police officers last year around Christmas time, killed, indiscriminately. It was an awful situation, as we know. We saw the career of one police officer, Officer Wilson of Ferguson, Missouri, who was widely condemned by so many while an investigation was occurring, only to find out once the investigation was complete that that officer had in fact behaved appropriately and professionally. But that said, his career was shattered and his life changed forever. We owe at least one thing to our our law enforcement officers. And that is the benefit of the doubt. At the very least, we owe you the benefit of the doubt. And so I just wanted to come here today and commend my legislative colleagues for their leadership on this legislation, and just to stand shoulder to shoulder with our men and women who are serving us every single day. And also, we can't forget what just happened last year in Pennsylvania at this time with 2 state police officers, one killed and one injured up in the Poconos. Again, these men and women put their lives on the line every single day for us. It's time for public officials all across this country to stand up and say, we support our police. They're there to help us. They're there to protect us. In fact, this week we're going to be demanding a lot of them as Pope Francis visits Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. We want to make sure that our law enforcement officials are given the respect that they have earned. And it's time for us to stand shoulder to shoulder, move this legislation. Thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you all very much for being here today. We greatly appreciate all the support throughout the Commonwealth and here in the legislature. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Yes.
Police officers are public employees, so inherently their names are public record, their salaries are public record. But unlike other government employees, they are entrusted with the power to actually use deadly force if necessary. So can someone, maybe Mr. McNesby or Mr. Neary, explain to me why there should be less public accountability when those actions are taken?
I don't mind taking it. You want to go? Good, John.
I'm going to take that one if you don't mind. You're right, they are entrusted with the authority to carry a weapon. Believe me, most of them don't ever want to use the weapon, save on a firing range. We accord people being investigated by prosecutors, county level, state level. We can't comment on that. We can't comment on that. We, as a society, cannot afford to release the names of police officers who may have been involved in an altercation until they have their due process, until they are found either culpable or innocent of the action. And at a time, we talk very much about our homegrown terrorists, people that are anarchists, people that want to fire on our police officers. You got to remember, we've all seen the YouTube videos of these radicals overseas that want to take on and destroy our country, who keep saying, target the uniforms of the military and the police. We cannot afford to release their names until the prosecutors and the administration have the thorough time needed for their investigation and come to that situation. And I will fight tirelessly to keep those names private until that due process is accorded to each of the individuals in the police department.
Martina, can I comment?
They're arrested then.
Yeah.
But even before they're arrested, people are named sometimes as persons of interest.
So right now in Philadelphia, there's a rule within 72 hours of an officer discharging their firearm, their name can be disclosed to the public. There's no rule for citizens' names to be disclosed to the public within 72 hours when they use their firearm. So automatically in Philadelphia County, officers are being treated differently. All this law does is make sure that the officers are provided an opportunity to defend themselves to the public, who do scrutinize them and have every right to. At least let the investigation be completed. If they're charged with a crime, then so be it. But if they're not, they should at least be able to defend themselves and have their families and their own lives be safe.
Along the same line, support a bill that would hypothetically give everyday citizens the privilege of having their names blocked from police if they use their firearm to kill someone in defense.
I mean, it's something to be considered, certainly.
There's a difference. You know, these folks are trained, these folks have badges, these folks took an oath of office, these folks lay their lives on the line each day. There often is protection for people being investigated. We've seen it here in Harrisburg. Sometimes names get out because of leaks to the press. Normally, a name doesn't get out till a person's charged, or there's a very strong suspicion that that person may be the one who pulled the trigger in a crime. But how many times have you heard the DA's office or the Attorney General's office or a police department say, we can't comment on that investigation? We're asking for the same rights for these police officers in those instances where they need to be investigated. Give them the due process they deserve.
All right, if there's no further questions, we'll conclude this wonderful day. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.